On our wedding day, my husband held me close and whispered, "I'll love you until my last breath." The next morning, he got into a car accident. When he woke up, he looked at me and asked, "Who are you?" My heart shattered as his mother smirked and said, "Now we can erase you from his life forever." But she didn't know. I had a secret that would bring his memories rushing back. I met James during our junior year at Boston University. He was in the architecture program, always carrying around these massive blueprints, and I was an art major, constantly covered in paint. Our paths crossed during a collaborative project between our departments. From the moment we met, there was an undeniable spark. We started dating, and our relationship blossomed over the years. After graduation, we moved to New York City together, chasing our dreams and building a life side by side. After 5 years together, James proposed during a trip to Central Park. It was a chilly autumn evening, and the leaves painted the park in shades of gold and crimson. As we stood by the Bow Bridge, he got down on one knee and asked me to be his forever. Tears streamed down my face as I said yes. We were ecstatic and couldn't wait to start our new chapter. Planning the wedding was both exciting and stressful. James's mother, Margaret, was particularly challenging. She had always been cold towards me, making it clear that she didn't think I was good enough for her son. She insisted on having the wedding in her hometown of Charleston, South Carolina, despite our desire to have it in New York. Wanting to keep the peace, we conceded. Margaret took over most of the planning, making decisions without consulting me. From the guest list to the choice of flowers, she had her hand in everything. I felt like a guest at my own wedding, but James assured me that once we were married, we'd have our own lives, free from his mother's interference. Our wedding day arrived, and despite the challenges, it was beautiful. The ceremony was held in a historic church in downtown Charleston. As I walked down the aisle, all my anxieties melted away when I saw James waiting for me at the altar. His eyes were filled with love and promise. During our first dance, he held me close and whispered, "I'll love you until my last breath." It was the happiest moment of my life. The next morning, we planned to drive to Savannah for our honeymoon. As we packed the car, James realized he had left his wallet at the hotel. He told me to wait while he went back to retrieve it. Minutes later, I received a call from an unknown number. It was the hospital. James had been in a car accident on his way back to the hotel. I rushed to the hospital, my heart pounding in my chest. When I arrived, I found James in a hospital bed, bandaged and bruised. Relief washed over me seeing him awake. "James," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. He looked at me with confusion. "Who are you?" I felt like the ground had been pulled from under me. "James, it's me, your wife." His brow furrowed. "I'm sorry, I don't remember." Margaret, who had arrived shortly after me, placed a hand on his shoulder. "Don't worry, darling. We'll take care of everything." She then turned to me with a smirk and whispered, "Now we can erase you from his life forever." The doctors diagnosed James with retrograde amnesia due to the trauma from the accident. He couldn't remember the past 6 years, which meant he had no recollection of our relationship or marriage. Margaret took full advantage of the situation. She moved James back into her home in Charleston, claiming it was best for his recovery. I was devastated but determined to help James regain his memories. I visited him daily, bringing photos, letters, and mementos from our time together. But Margaret always found a way to cut my visits short or prevent them altogether. She even went as far as telling James that I was a delusional fan from his college days who had become obsessed with him. What Margaret didn't know was that I had a secret that would bring James's memories rushing back. A few months before the wedding, James and I had gotten matching tattoos on our ribs, just below our hearts. It was a simple design, a small compass with the coordinates of the place we first met. It was our little secret, something deeply personal that only the two of us knew. One evening, during one of my rare visits, I asked James if he had noticed the tattoo on his side. He looked puzzled. "What tattoo?" I explained the significance, showing him mine. He lifted his shirt, revealing the identical tattoo. He stared at it, tracing the lines with his fingers. I don't remember getting this, he murmured. It's because we got them together, I said softly. It was our promise to always find our way back to each other. That night, something shifted. James became more receptive to my stories and the memories I shared. He started asking questions about our life together, showing genuine interest. Margaret noticed the change and became more aggressive in keeping us apart. She even filed a restraining order against me, claiming I was harassing James. Feeling defeated, I considered giving up. But then, I received a late-night call. Hello? I answered, my voice groggy. It's me, James's voice came through the line. I remember. Tears welled up in my eyes. James? I remember everything, he said, his voice breaking. I'm so sorry for everything you've been through. James confronted his mother about her manipulations and deceit. He moved out of her house and back to New York with me. We sought therapy together to heal from the trauma and rebuild our relationship. Margaret tried to reach out, but James set firm boundaries. He realized how toxic her influence had been and chose to prioritize our marriage. It's been a year since the accident. While the journey was painful and filled with obstacles, it strengthened our bond. We've learned the importance of communication, trust, and standing up for our relationship. James had been back in New York with me for about 2 months. Things weren't easy. He still had gaps in his memory, and every now and then he'd ask me strange questions, like why he didn't remember the taste of my cooking or why some photos felt unfamiliar. But he wanted to remember. That was what mattered. We were in therapy. We were trying. And for a little while, it seemed like we might actually be okay. Then one morning, I noticed something strange. James was on the phone in the hallway. I could only hear a bit of the conversation, but I heard him say, "No, I told you not to call me here." I walked out of the kitchen slowly. He jumped when he saw me. Ended the call right away. Who was that? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Just work stuff, he said too quickly. Way too quickly. James didn't lie. At least, not before. Strange behavior over the next few days, James became distant. He stopped going to therapy. He started leaving the apartment for long walks and coming back hours later. He didn't tell me where he was going. He barely touched his food. One night, I found him sitting in the dark on the couch, staring at nothing. You okay? I asked. He looked up at me like he barely knew me. Then he said something that chilled me. Sometimes I think none of this is real. What do you mean? I whispered. He didn't answer. Just stood up and went to bed without another word. A week later, a letter came in the mail. From a woman named Alina. It was short. Just a note. No return address. James, I'm still waiting. You said you'd leave her after the wedding. You promised. Don't forget me. My whole body went cold. My hands shook so bad I could barely hold the paper. Alina? He never mentioned anyone named Alina. Was she someone from before the accident? Was it possible he'd been cheating? My mind spiraled. I didn't want to believe it. But I couldn't ignore it either. That night, I confronted him. Who is Alina? James didn't even blink. He stared at me for a long time, then said, I don't know. But she wrote you. He shook his head. I don't remember her. Did you cheat on me? He looked away. I don't think I did. That answer nearly broke me. I decided to dig. I checked his old email accounts, the ones he hadn't logged into since before the accident. And there she was. Alina. Emails. Photos. Long messages full of affection. He had been seeing her. For how long, I didn't know. But it wasn't just a fling. One email, dated 2 weeks before the wedding, said, I hate hiding. I hate being your secret. You said she wasn't right for you. I believed you. Don't marry her. The bottom fell out of my world. Everything we built, our history, our wedding, the recovery, had it all been a lie? I wanted to scream. I wanted to destroy something. But instead, I did something worse. I went to Charleston. To see her. Margaret answered the door with that same cold smile. I was wondering when you'd come back, she said like I was a fly she thought she'd swatted. I want answers, I said. Did you know about Alina? She actually laughed. Oh honey, she said. You really thought he didn't have doubts? She stepped aside and motioned for me to come in. And that's when she dropped the real bomb. Alina came to the wedding. What? She was there. In the back. Watching. I told James to keep her quiet. I told him to marry you, go through with it. It would all work out. But the idiot crashed the car and forgot everything, and now look at us. I felt sick. She looked me dead in the eye and said, James was never going to stay with you. The accident just sped things up. But I had something she didn't know. I left without another word. When I got back to New York, James was waiting. I remember, he said quietly. I froze. What do you mean? I remember her. Alina. I remember the things I said. The promises I made. The lies. He started crying. I never wanted to hurt you. But I did. I was a coward. I thought I could have both. Then the accident, and you were the only one who stayed. I looked at him. I wanted to believe he was truly sorry. But then I remembered my secret. The one no one else knew. The one that would change everything. Because right before the wedding, right before the vows, I had taken a test. A pregnancy test. It was positive. James wasn't just my husband. He was going to be the father of my child. He still didn't know. And now? I didn't know if I should tell him. I stood in our apartment, watching James cry, feeling like I was stuck in someone else's life. The man I loved was breaking in front of me. And still, I couldn't bring myself to say it. Not yet. I didn't know if I was protecting myself or the baby. Maybe both. You said you wanted to remember, I said finally. But some memories, maybe they're better left buried. He looked up, confused. What do you mean? I mean, James, maybe we need to figure out who we are now. Not who we were. I didn't tell him that day. But that wasn't the only secret. A stranger at the door a few days later, someone buzzed the apartment. It was a woman. Mid-30s. Sharp eyes. Confident. Hi. I'm Olivia, she said. I'm Alina's sister. I stared at her. She told me everything, Olivia continued. And I know what your husband did. She handed me a folder. Inside were printed screenshots of text messages, photos, even a flight itinerary. James flew to Chicago 3 weeks before the wedding. To see her. That didn't make sense. He told me he was in Boston with an old friend that weekend. But the proof was right in front of me. He begged her to wait for him, Olivia said. He promised he'd leave you after the wedding. Said he just needed more time. That his mother wouldn't let him back out. And Alina, she believed him. I was shaking. She waited for him after the accident. He never called. Never showed up. I closed the folder, hands numb. She killed herself 2 months ago. I looked up, horrified. What? She was drinking. Took pills. Her body was found in her apartment. And the last thing on her phone was a text she wrote but never sent, to him. I couldn't breathe. Olivia's eyes narrowed. So tell me. Is he still worth protecting? Everything crumbled. I didn't tell James about the visit. Or the folder. Or Alina. But the guilt started eating at me. My silence wasn't noble anymore. It was cowardice. One night, I had a nightmare, James walking away, holding a child I couldn't reach. I woke up sobbing. That morning, I finally said the words. I'm pregnant. James froze. For the first time since the accident, I saw his face go completely blank. How long have you known? He asked. Since the wedding. You didn't tell me. I didn't know if I could trust you. He stood there in silence. Then, quietly, I don't think I'm ready to be a father. He left. A week passed. Then another. One morning, I opened the door to get the mail and found Margaret standing in the hallway. She looked smug. James is back with me, she said simply. Of course he is. She stepped closer. I always knew you'd ruin everything. But don't worry, he'll come to his senses soon. And when he does, we'll take care of that child too. I slammed the door in her face. But then. Another message 2 days later, a message popped up on my phone. No name. Just a number. He's lying to you. He remembers more than he says. And I think he's still in contact with Alina's family. Ask him about the cabin in Vermont. I felt dizzy reading it. We had a cabin in Vermont. We'd stayed there during the holidays. It was James's favorite place. A place he never talked about after the accident. Why would someone mention it now? Unless he had gone there recently? Unless someone else had been there with him? I started looking through our joint account. Hidden charges. Car rentals. Small hotel stays. And one booking, under his name, for that exact cabin. Last month. While I thought he was working late. I decided to go. I needed answers. No more waiting. I drove to Vermont alone. When I got to the cabin, the first thing I noticed was the car in the driveway. James's car. I parked behind it. Walked up the steps slowly. The door wasn't locked. I stepped inside, and froze. The living room had clothes scattered on the floor. A wine bottle on the table. 2 glasses. Footsteps came down the stairs. James. Followed by a woman. Not Alina. Someone new. Maybe someone worse. He looked at me like he'd seen a ghost. I can explain, he said. But I already knew. I stood in the doorway of the Vermont cabin like a statue. The smell of wine. The half-made bed visible through the open door. The woman beside James didn't say anything. She just stared at me, wide-eyed, like she realized too late that she was the other woman now. James looked terrified. He took a step toward me. I can explain, I raised a hand. Don't. Just don't. But he kept going. She's just someone I've been talking to. I didn't mean for you to find out like this, didn't mean for me to find out how, James? My voice cracked. That you ran away from me, from our baby, to hide out here and screw someone new? The woman tried to quietly grab her bag, avoiding eye contact. I turned to her. You knew he was married? She whispered, he said it was complicated. I laughed. Bitter. Sharp. It's not. It's really, really not. James looked like he wanted to sink into the floor. I remember everything, he said finally. Everything. Alina. The lies. You. The accident didn't erase that. It just gave me a chance to start over. A pause. A beat. I stared at him. So this wasn't amnesia. This was escape. He nodded. Slowly. The air in the room felt like it had been sucked out. You were never planning to stay, I said, barely a whisper now. You remembered, and you chose to lie. I didn't know what to do, he said. I was drowning. I loved you. I did. But everything got so messy, and I felt trapped. Margaret was pressuring me, Alina was threatening to tell you, You took the easy way out, I snapped. You pretended to forget me. And you let me carry everything. You let me beg you to remember. You let me grieve for you, while you were planning your next escape. The woman slipped out the door. James didn't stop her. He just stood there. And I broke. I'm pregnant, I said again, this time louder. That wasn't just a detail I forgot to mention. I was trying to give you space. Give us time. I thought maybe we could rebuild, if you just remembered how we used to be. He looked stunned, like he'd been slapped. You're lying, he said, but he didn't sound sure. I reached into my coat and threw the crumpled ultrasound photo at him. He bent to pick it up. His hands shook. Oh my God, he whispered. This is real. I nodded, tears running down my face. You still want to escape? He dropped the photo. Sat down hard on the arm of the couch. I don't know what I want. That's the only honest thing you've said to me. I left the cabin that night. Drove all the way back to New York, crying so hard I had to pull over twice. I didn't text. Didn't call. Not even when he sent message after message, apologizing, begging, swearing he'd come back and be better. Margaret called me once. Left a voicemail. You trapped him. You manipulated him. I deleted it. Our therapist called to check in after I missed 2 sessions. I told her I wouldn't be coming back. And I filed for divorce. My best friend, Jules, was furious. You gave him everything, and he spat on it, she said. You don't owe him forgiveness. Not now. Not ever. My brother flew in from DC. To stay with me for a week. Quiet support. No questions. Just made dinner and sat on the couch with me watching terrible TV. Even my landlord, Mrs. D'Angelo, left a little note under my door. I always thought he was too pretty to be honest. You're better off, sweetheart. I smiled at that one. First time in weeks. James showed up 2 months later. I let him in. Not because I wanted to. But because I needed to. He looked tired. Thinner. I don't know who I am without you, he said. I didn't say anything. I miss us. I miss the way we used to be. I miss what we had before I messed it all up. I looked at him, really looked, and saw the wreckage of all the lies he'd told, some to me, most to himself. I loved you, I said. You were home. But now, every time I see you, I see the lies, the betrayals, the cowardice. And I don't think I can raise a child with someone who ran when it got hard. Tears filled his eyes. But I didn't move. I want to be there, he said. For the baby. You'll have to prove it, I said simply. Because I'm done giving you chances just because I remember who you used to be. He nodded. Wiped his face. Then left. It's been 4 months. The divorce is almost final. I still cry sometimes. Especially late at night. I still wonder how things might have turned out if he'd just chosen me over the chaos. Over himself. The baby is due in 6 weeks. I'm scared. I'm angry. But I'm also stronger than I thought I could be. I've started painting again. My therapist says that's healing. I don't know what comes next. But I do know this, I am not anyone's secret. I am not a backup plan. I am not just someone you can forget. And no matter what happens, I'll never forget that the truth always comes out. Even when you try to bury it.